All right. Welcome to the Daily Parks and Rec show slash podcast. This is Craig LeBlanc, the Doorman, your host, coming to you every day, 12 noon Eastern, with parks and recreation information, events, wisdom being shared by the community. You name it. We are all about parks and recreation here. This is episode number 29. We had our guest, Mr. Marlon Sams. He had to reschedule, so we're going to get him back on the show. But we've got a ton of great stuff that's being planned. We've got 29 uh, Parks and Rec professionals, directors, superintendents, people that work in grants, professors coming on to the show that's already booked. We've got, that we're in conversations with to come onto the show. We've got 7 that are booked right now. And we have got so much great feedback from the community. Wanted to go over a little bit of that feedback. So as I've been saying these last few days, we are going to have a couple of shows that are on specific topics. So what do I mean by that? Parks and Rec is, of course, a very broad industry, covers a lot of stuff. And sometimes we need to go really deep on a certain topic. Take, for instance, grant writing. Getting grants can make it's a make or break deal for a lot of cities to be able to double your money. And so a lot of these grants they're matching grants, which means if you're able to raise $500,000 through a benefactor or through the community, these grants will double whatever you can raise. And these are not insignificant amounts. Many times it's $500,000, $1 million they'll match up to for a specific project. And so we've got a lot of directors that have gotten very good at finding these grants, filling out these grants. What most of them will tell you is that your first grant is the hardest grant. But you learn so much the first grant that your second, third, fourth follow-on grants are so much easier because there's a lot of stuff you just have to learn for the first time. And a lot of these lessons are universal grant writing lessons, and can be shared and work nationally and statewide. And of course, every little grant's different. Every state has different grants available. There's federal grants available. And so we've reached out to a couple of, we've had directors that have gotten pretty good at this, and they have resources that we're going to bring onto the show and make a couple of solid episodes just on grant writing. And we may end up doing a monthly show on that topic. And so what we're seeing bubbling to the top as I'm interviewing and connecting with a lot of people in Parks and Rec is there are certain topics that are kind of hot buttons, or very common, that we all face in Parks and Recreation. Grant writing just being one of them. And of course, as a media company, as a podcast, specifically geared towards Parks and Recreation, we want to make sure that we create a digital library held on YouTube with different columns, different topics, so that we'll be able to create have a library just on grant writing, and we can bring Parks and Rec professionals and advisors to basically record 30-minute, 1-hour episodes just on a single topic. And that way, if you're a new Park and Rec director, if you're in the middle of nowhere USA, or you're just been assigned to this task of grant writing, you'll be able to find some solid information and some resources at your disposal for free for the community to just share the wisdom that they've painstakingly acquired over careers. Just know, and I know this is said often in Parks and Recreation, you say that you're not alone and that there are other people. It's often said, but many times you know you're not alone, but you haven't met the master of grant writing yet. And we want to go find these masters of grant writing across the country and give them a platform to record the wisdom that they've attained, and to where it's readily available and distributed to the community through the Daily Parks and Rec show. So that's one of our missions, is to document and capture a lot of the great wisdom and content that's been accumulated, and then share it in this YouTube library that we're creating through these daily podcasts and daily shows. And so grant writing is just an example of one of those topics. Another great topic, which I think is going to be, this may turn into a weekly show, at least a monthly show, is around the whole topic of students, career choice, education, universities, professors that are teaching and equipping the young college student, the young professional that is choosing Parks and Recreation as a career path. And so we don't want this to be the best kept secret on college campuses. We want this to be our best and brightest coming that are choosing Parks and Recreation as a career path. And we want to highlight and showcase the universities that are leaning heavily into this industry and having good classes and good colleges and good professors. And so, if you are one of these professors or universities at a college, at a university, teaching on Parks and Rec, or if you are a student that is listening or runs across this content, please reach out to me on LinkedIn or Facebook in the DMs. I would like to have you on the show. We would like to discuss what you're doing. What is your experience at the university? What are you teaching? What are you being taught in the classes? For your professor, what are you teaching in these classes? And we want to give you a platform to be able to communicate with the world of students out there and really highlight what you are doing. And so at least once a month, we're going to do a show on that. I really think this could become a weekly show where we have Parks and Rec college students pursuing a degree for the career of Parks and Recreation. If you are a professor that is maybe a retired Parks and Rec director and now dedicated your life to educating the next generation of Parks and Rec professionals, we would like to have you on the show and understand your journey, why you chose it, and what's available to students. What colleges are dedicating more and more of um, their classes and their degrees, gearing it more towards Parks and Recreation. So, I think that's going to be at least a once a month show, maybe twice a month, maybe even a weekly show. But we'll see. I'm going to see how the community responds. I usually ask that to all of my phone call interviews with the superintendents, directors, whatever, and they always think that is a chunk of content that's not that can always use improvements. We can always help raise awareness to college kids around that career choice, career path topic. Okay, and then another big one, which I know is going to be a weekly show, is on park maintenance. And so, so much of the staff and manpower and hours are dedicated to maintaining the park's facilities. This is from groundkeepers, field maintenance, you name. I mean, what does it take to maintain the whole network of infrastructure, of buildings, of fields? This is a big chunk of the work done in Parks and Rec is maintaining the parks, keeping them beautiful, keeping them well manicured, groomed, updated. Sometimes you got to knock the old 50-year-old building down, build something new. But then what happens after it's built? We've got to maintain this infrastructure, and so I really want to have a show dedicated to the superintendents, the craftsmen, the people that are actually doing the hard work of maintaining these facilities. I think that's yeah, I know I'll be able to make a weekly show out of that just because I've got such an extensive network of superintendents and directors and stuff like that. That is a lot of what they do day to day. So we're going to do that on Mondays. We're going to call it Maintenance Mondays. I'm hoping to get our first Monday in February to be that earmarked dedicated show. I'm still working a lot, networking on the back, making sure we get a good every Monday lineup. That content will kind of start to reveal itself in the direction it wants to go, because park maintenance is again a broad topic within Parks and Recreation. So that's another great topic. Another had a great coffee with Randy Alvarez. He is a powerhouse in Louisiana. Thank you, Randy, for meeting with me today. We had a great phone call and we decided we needed to have an in person meeting. I can't always meet with my people in person because unless you want to come visit Baton Rouge or New Orleans, Louisiana, I've got an extra house in both. You're welcome to fly down, enjoy New Orleans, enjoy Baton Rouge, come on, you can stay with me. I've got many extra bedrooms available for anyone that would like to come. And I'm going to make this whole room is a dedicated podcast studio that I'm building out. And so I think me and Randy are going to host the first in-person live podcast in this recording studio. I've got my Rode mic. I've got another one sitting by Fro right here, brand new, has not even been hooked up yet. I'm going to hook up. I'm going to put some chairs in the back and we're going to do like an in-person podcast. Randy volunteered to be the first. So what a great guy to have. I thought I knew Randy from a distance. We've always been part of Parks and Rec, but he has such a life of experience. He was the president of the Louisiana Parks and Rec Association for 3 terms. He was the Park and Rec director and got passed a 0.5% tax for his community. He was for a decade long. He built one of the largest sports complexes in Louisiana and drove a lot of sports tourism that I think he told me now has an economic impact of $5 million in tax dollars on that 0.5%. And a lot of that came from outside the Hammond, Louisiana area. And then he was a Musco sales rep for 7 years. I am, of course, I've been a lighting engineer and a master electrician, multi-generational, so second generation. My father was a master electrician and stuff. And so I've always had a heart for engineering. I think I'm an engineer at heart. And so I love Musco lights. They're very well engineered, love their systems. And I actually got into manufacturing myself. And so he was able to represent that company, which is a great company that has been supporting Parks and Rec for a long time. Everybody I've met there has been, stellar people, first class. So Randy was one of their reps here in Louisiana for 7 years. That's kind of how we connected. And then now he's a full-time consultant for Parks and Rec, and he's helping to manage the Louisiana Municipal Association and also the Louisiana Parks and Rec Association. He's been a powerhouse in there. So we just had a good 2-hour coffee. That's why I was a little bit late for this meeting, because our 2-hour coffee ran until like a 2-hour and 40-minute coffee. You know how it goes when parks people start talking. So he's going to come on the show, and we are going to do an episode, which I think is going to be one of many, on state associations. I really think if there's one of the voices that I want to raise up, aside from for the students and for maintenance, it's associations. Associations, and I ask, and I'm going to start asking a lot more of my guests, but at least in person, I've always asked, pitch why attend your state association. Give me a sales pitch. And you're talking to cities and staff that have never attended your state annual association and been a part of that network. And here you've been a part of it for decades. Can you please give me a good reason why I should attend the state association? And on top of that, attend NRPA, which is the National Association. And there's so many staff members and park systems that have never been to either. And if we're building a big megaphone, a media company for Parks and Recreation, I believe that is one of the many organizations inside of Parks and Recreation that does so much good work. They do great work from a legislative standpoint to make sure favorable laws are passed for Parks and Recreation. They do great work on continuing education and being a big chunk of keeping our Parks and Rec professionals up to date, well-trained on the latest and greatest, on the best practices, all through these CEUs that are offered at your association's annual event. But I say the most powerful thing that everyone is a resounding, they agree with this 100%, is the network. And you hear that word thrown around like, yeah, it's the network. It's, connecting to the people and stuff. And it's really hard to put a value on that. But let me tell you this. For any of you that have done something for the first time, you realize there is so much extra time. And when I say extra, it's like an order of magnitude, an extra zero, 10 times the effort on the first time you do something versus the second, third, fourth. Let's say you do something 10 times. By the time you repeat the same task a 10th time, you've gotten so much more efficient, typically 10 times as efficient. But when you're trying to figure out how to write a grant for your park system for the first time, it's 10 times harder, easily 10 times harder because you've never done it before. You don't have any network, you don't have any experience, you don't have any track record, you don't know what to do, and more importantly, you don't know what not to do. So you do a lot of things that you shouldn't be doing, and you don't realize that you shouldn't be doing it until after you get that first one under your belt. So if you can have somebody that's in your network that you meet at a state association that's done this complex task multiple times for decades, you basically have them on your team to say, here's everything I've learned. You now your new starting point is where they've left off. You get to basically pick up their playbook. You don't have to write your playbook from scratch. You've got the old coach's playbook, and you can basically pick up where he left off. He's got all the plans mapped out. He's got all the connections. You can, of course, it's going to be a little bit different, but you're not reinventing the wheel from ground zero. And that is the most valuable thing that I've heard, that I've experienced about why you want to surround yourself by expertise and experience and wisdom, which you meet these people and you spend a weekend with them or a week, 2 or 3, 4 days with them socially. So you connect with them on a friendship social level. But now when you go back, these are people that you have their cell phone numbers, you become friends with. These are typically your future employers sometimes. Yeah, they're asking you, hey, I'm retiring. Would you come replace me in this city kind of thing? And so a lot of people find their future jobs, meet their future bosses, meet the cities that they're going to work for, all at these associations. And it's important to connect with them in the evening events in a social setting where you're not so dialed into your local parks and rec. If the day to day working of a parks and recreation facility or city, you're not going to meet all the other directors, superintendents, people that do what you do any other way unless you can congregate once a year, meet once a year at your state association. And these are typically very inexpensive for the value they provide. It's a few $100s, three, four, $500 for a weekend stay at a resort, at a state park, and they bring in guest speakers from all over that provide huge value. Plus, there's a whole vendor setup where you've got 40 vendors that you're going to have to pick one vendor for your swimming pool or whatever it is that you're trying to build, and you'll find vendors that have been helping this community for multi generations and decades. All this can be done at your local state association that's put on annually. So there's my sales pitch for it. And I'd like you to hear from other people. And Randy Alvarez, who I met with, has been leaning heavily into the state associations, has helped build it from the ground up, and is still building it after 30 years of being in this. And so, what a great example of someone that has used our state associations, built our state associations. And so he's going to come onto the show, and we'll probably do 3 or 4 episodes, hoping to do it in person to where you'll see a camera facing me. I'm going to have to ask Nate to help me set this up. But typically on an in-person podcast, you've got like 3 to 4 cameras. You've got one facing both of us individually and then one capturing both of us. I still have to set all that stuff up, but I've got the mic available. I just got to buy the cameras and stuff. So a couple $1,000s down the road, I might have a decent setup to be able to host people here. And we've got a great community of Parks and Rec professionals. Plus, I'm sure it wouldn't be hard to convince some of our good speakers to come down to New Orleans or Baton Rouge, Louisiana, spend the weekend with us and create some content. So we'll see where this goes. But thank you, Randy, for meeting with me today. We've got a lot of good shows coming up. Like I said, we've got 26 people, 26 either directors or superintendents or parks professionals coming onto the show. Eventually, we haven't scheduled them, but they're in the process of being scheduled. And I think we're up to 7. Let me pull that up. So I want to kind of read through some of these. Here we go. Meetings. Again, I did mention Calendly app. And if you're not using this thing, you're missing the boat. This is such a powerful app when it comes to scheduling and keeping track of your busy times. I need to see if these guys have an affiliate link because I'm selling them way too hard for me to not be um, having something coming back to the show. Let me just roll through it. So Jonathan Allen is coming on next Friday. This coming Friday. And then we have Jacob Stevens. Jacob, I'm going to be roping you into my Monday podcast. He made the mistake of telling me that he wants to make a podcast. And I'm like, I'll help. And let's make it on maintenance. And let's do it on Mondays. And so he's coming on next Wednesday. And then we have Caitlin Haynes coming on that following Thursday, January 23rd. We rescheduled Chris Cotton. He is a powerhouse director, and he'll be coming on Friday the 24th with a special guest. So there's going to be 3 of us on there. Wait till y'all see his special guest. That's going to be a good episode. We'll be looking forward to. All of these are going to be really good. Carrie Fullerton is coming on Tuesday the 28th. And then we have Kevin Brown scheduled for, let's see, February 6th. And then I know I'm missing one other, but anyway, just wanted to kind of give you all a little of what's coming up. Thank you everyone for all the outpouring of support. I knew it. I could just smell it. I could smell that this was something that so desperately needed to happen. Y'all know I won't shut up about Bitcoin because that was my background. That's where I came from. Helped me kind of get into this kind of retirement phase of my life. And there were so many great content creators over there. I mean, just outstanding guys globally. And some of the authors of these books that I have behind me, I still haven't got all my books up here. They came on the show and I just learned so much about not just the topic of Bitcoin, but about content creation, distributing that content, getting the word out, creating a megaphone for an industry. And the whole time I was thinking, I really want to do this for the Parks and Rec community. And I just want to build a podcast and a media company. That is my intention. That is my mission. That is going to be my life goal. I am super passionate about podcasting and about creating a voice, a megaphone, a platform for an industry. And this industry has fed me for so long. For those of you who don't know, I used to manufacture LED lights for myself. I was a master electrician for several decades. And I got into manufacturing high quality stuff for myself because I had 60 electricians that used to work for me and we would install this stuff. And so I made sure to manufacture something of super high quality. I was actually spec'd all this stuff out. And that's how I, fed my family, fed myself. And that's where I kind of came into the Parks and Rec community. Fast forward just to a few years ago, I semi-retired, got into Bitcoin, built a podcast there, fell in love with creating content, distributing content. I did that full time for a year, nothing else. I literally just created content for Bitcoin. Got into show hosting, into the audio, into the video, everything, fell in love with it. I'm like, this is what I want to do. But I felt like I was like a drop in the ocean of content when it came to Bitcoin. And that if I really didn't add much in addition to, I thought we had some great shows. We had up to 15,000 people listening to a live that I did on one of I think the 200th episode. So I was thinking, we need to do something like this to an industry that provides so much value that it brings so much community together. Think of the birthday parties that are held at parks across America. Think of the grandparents pushing the grandkids on the swings in the parks across America. Think of the walks that couples are taking, the balls that are being thrown between father and son, father and daughter, the connections that's being made. And, one thing me and Randy talked about is so much work is being done remotely. And if you're listening to this, think about for a second, What senses are you using? You're using sound and sight. That's it. 2 senses. How many senses do you have? 5. Okay. Sight, sound, taste, touch, smell. Okay, so when you're remembering this event, okay, you're typically focusing on only 2. If you're remote, if you're a Zoom call, if you're at a computer, if you're listening to videos, you have um, only 2 senses that are creating that memory in your mind that you can refer back to later. And I think what we're having is we're having sensory overload on the 2 sensors, and we're having, the other 3 sensors that are not being used. And so these memories we creating are void of touch, taste, and smell. Now, walk out of your house, go have coffee with somebody, go bring somebody to a park, go push a grandkid on a swing, and what are you involving? You're hugging your grandkid, you're pushing, you're feeling the wind, you're smelling the grass, you're smelling the outside air, you're using your sight, your sound. If y'all eat something together or do a little picnic, now how much more is that memory going to be for you with your grandkid at a park versus a Zoom call with your grandkid, or you just watching them through a phone. It's not, I don't want to say it's a sterile environment. We do spend a lot of time online, and I have connected with people through X, through LinkedIn, on like I have had some very good friends that I've never met in person that we've done some great stuff together. Actually, I see one that just asked me how I was doing with Orange Pilled. He is a guy over in England. So did we did a great little podcast together. And he's just creating content for Bitcoin. Again, never met the guy. He reached out to me on X. We had a common topic, and so we connected well through just a podcast. And so I know you can do that, but there is a part of the human spirit that wants to be outside. And how often do we take that opportunity to go outside and meet at a park run by the Parks and Rec systems, the Park and Rec director, the field maintenance people? We just show up and we have those special moments with our children, with our spouses, with our family, with our friends, family reunion, weddings, birthdays, events, fairs, farmers markets, basketball, t-ball, swimming, yoga, you name it. And I can tell you, it's where memories are created and strong emotion filled, all 5 senses being used. And I think this is where Park and Rec is positioned to help a remote workforce have much more memorable in-person community local events. And I want to create the megaphone that gets this word out, that lifts up the unsung heroes of our Parks and Rec, and that provides a library to these people of how to do their job more efficiently, better, with shared wisdom from across the country. And I have not run across too many. There may be a few out there. If there is a pilot, let me make this offer out. If you are a podcast dedicated to parks and recreation, and I don't know about you, please reach out to me. Let's collaborate on stuff. Maybe I can speak about your podcast, and let's grow the community of content creators, podcasters out there, because I think this is an underserved industry, and I've seen that, and I can see that by talking to the people of Parks and Recreation. So at least we're going to do it. But I recommend and I encourage all other people, content creators, podcasts out there, to do the same. Um, so we are only 29 episodes in. We have got a full-time editor that edits this, creates the shorts, and then helps distribute. We've got a full-time distributor and myself. So we're putting about 140 man hours a week into the creation of this podcast and all the systems that go into building a media company. And I am having a blast doing it. So thank y'all so much for contributing. Now, when it comes to funding this, we had an idea, and I think this might be a great way to fund it. Of course, I know, and I've been reached out to by lots of great vendors that serve the Parks and Rec community, and we may end up highlighting some of their stuff. But I thought about, and I want to get some feedback. I'm asking for feedback from anyone in Parks and Recreation. Are y'all familiar? We've all bought Girl Scout cookies, right? And there's something called the Girl Scout cookie funding model. Now, we don't look at Girl Scouts and think those are bakers, those are cookie makers. But you can only buy Thin Mints from Girl Scouts, right? Or you can only buy the peanut butter ones. Shoot, I forget what they're called, or the Dosey Dos. And and I know that I love the Girl Scout cookies. And when I see the little Girl Scouts and their moms selling Girl Scout cookies, I always buy extra and give them away because I know I'm supporting a little girl. She's going to use this money to go to her week-long camp. And did you know that the Girl Scouts sell $800 million worth of cookies a year? And that all goes to, well, producing a really high quality cookie, a brand that we love and consume. And it also helps the girls go to their camps and experience all that Girl Scouts has to offer. So that's another model to support what you do. We don't look at them as a cookie company. We look at them as what Girl Scouts of America is. So when I think of the Daily Parks and Rec show, I don't want to think of a bit ad driven. Um, I don't want to become a billboard for the Parks and Rec vendors. I love Parks and Rec vendors. I've worked a lot with them. I was even one of them for a while. But my heart and passion right now is in podcasting and creating content, distributing content for an industry that I believe in. And that industry is Parks and Rec. How I serve them is through building a megaphone in the Daily Parks and Rec show. That's what I want to do. That's what I'm going to dedicate the next 10 years of my life to. So I considered and am considering the Girl Scout cookie model, which is what is a product. Of course, I know how to manufacture that thing right there that Flo's holding up. It's a super high quality LED light that uses Meanwhile drivers, Cree chips. It's got a 100,000 hour factory warranty. I have sold and manufactured thousands of these fixtures that are lighting up little playgrounds and little um, sports field, community fields. It's just a workhorse of a light that never breaks. So if that's something you're interested in, yeah, we could use that, and I can get it specifically manufactured for the Daily Parks and Rec show, and that can be our Girl Scout cookie. So that's my concept that I'm kind of spitballing. And I reached out to my last three directors and I said, now, is there another flavor or version that we could just have one or two key products that Parks and Recreation uses? And I can say, hey, if you want to support the channel, just buy our 8-foot table with something that April gave me out of California. She's like, Craig, if you can manufacture a high quality 8-foot table, I can tell you we're always looking for good ones. They're hard to find. And then I had another guy, Chad, over in Massachusetts. He said, we need book sacks. We always have these book sacks that we use for camp, for summer camp, and we buy them, and sometimes they're cheap. And if I thought I could support the channel, which is creating the good content for the community, by buying this book sack. And I said, those are two great suggestions. Of course, my background as an electrical engineer and an electrician, I know this product, but those are two good examples of needs that can be met and support this channel at the same time. So that would be our Girl Scout cookie. So I'm in the process of considering what are the products that would be simple, like a one size fits all, like an 8-foot table that you would use in a community center. That could be something. And just off the back of the sales of those 8-foot tables, I can get them manufactured. I have lots of manufacturing connections in Shenzhen and in Mexico and in other places that I've worked with over a career of manufacturing stuff. So I'm open to suggestions. So which product do you think would be the good Girl Scout cookie for the Daily Parks and Rec show that we can fund a 20 to 30 man media company that has professional content that's being edited, distributed, and creating great libraries and representing the Parks and Rec community well through a media company dedicated to Parks and Recreation. That's what I think we can build. That's what I'm interested in building. That's where my heart's at. And if we had a couple of products that would fund all that, I'm all for it. So I'm going to spend these next couple weeks really asking all the phone calls I have, all the directors that I'm in communication with, what's the one or two products that we can sell? Kind of like a t-shirt or a coffee mug. Of course, I don't want to have to fund this off of a million coffee mugs being sold. So that's one thing I like about something that's a little more higher ticket is if someone's buying 200 8-foot tables, that's a nice chunk that we can then maybe fund a media company for a month or two versus a $20 t-shirt. Um, so anyway, that's what we're thinking as far as how we would fund this, but we are still open to funding ideas. I don't want to make this about a big fundraising thing. We keep a very lean staff, just myself and a distributor and a content editor, and we use a lot of AI to produce a lot of the stuff. Um, but anyway, that's kind of where we're going with this on funding. I wanted to get everyone's feedback on what their thoughts are around that. Um, with that in mind, we're taking feedback constantly from everyone. So if there's anything you see we can do better on how we distribute conversations we're having, people you'd like to see on the show, the direction of the show you'd like to take, now's the time to get in and make those suggestions so that we can make our version 2 of the daily Parks and Rec better than version 1. Version 1 was about just pooling the resources of the community, getting the development team together and just launch. Okay. But you're going to see lots of iterations of our channel as it evolves and grows into what the community wants it to be. And our job here at the Daily Parks and Rec Show is just to listen, take it all in, and then try to produce something that they see that's valuable. So again, this is Craig LeBlanc with the Daily Parks and Rec Show. Wait, before I sign off, I do have a quote of the day as promised. I want to do a daily quote. Typically, I'm going to ask my guest to do that. But today you just have me. So here's my quote. It is during our darkest moments that we must focus to see the light. And so when we are experiencing significant hardships and challenges, it's crucial to actively search for and concentrate on the positive aspects. And so, at least this is how my life went. I don't know how the rest of you humans' life has went, but I can trace uh, a lot of my wisdom coming from my darkest moments. It was then when I really had to focus on what was working, and I was able to climb out of whatever hole I found myself in life. And so if you're going through some dark days, if you're going through some dark moments, just know that you will most likely look back and see that this is when you had to dig deep, find your strength to be able to overcome whatever it is that's beating you up. So I'd like to encourage you to just keep going. You might have heard that other expression, when you're going through hell, just keep moving. Don't stop and make it your home. Try to get through this, that all storms come and go, they will pass. So whether you're trying to write this grant or trying to launch this new facility or trying to deal with this special event that is just a beast coming up and it's killing you in Parks and Rec, just know that you're going to get through this. You're tougher than your problems are, and you just need to believe more in the future than you do in the past. So I hope that's a little nugget of inspiration for you guys. This is Craig LeBlanc, the Doorman, your host, your proud host of the Daily Parks and Rec Show. We will be here again tomorrow, 12 noon Eastern, 5 days a week. Thank you guys for all the love and support y'all giving us. Love you guys. Y'all have an awesome day. We'll see y'all again here tomorrow.